Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys about the concept that Paul Carter always termed, and I love the concept, and it's you go to the gym and you train to build strength, not to demonstrate it. And in fact, understanding that concept is the best way to make consistent progress without getting hurt. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skill nut my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this, because let's just be frank here. Getting hurt is probably the biggest setback you could possibly see in the gym. And what do I mean by that? A major injury in the gym can permanently take you out of lifting or being able to develop certain body parts. At least effectively, it's going to require you to become really creative to continue to even train certain muscle groups after a major injury, because sometimes there is permanent damage. And even if you're running a program that you and someone else started at the same point, you run a slightly less effective program that gives you 10% less progress than he does, but he suffers a major injury in the gym at some point that year, you are probably going to surpass that person by the end of the year. You're going to get more than they will out of it. So injury prevention is a really important thing, and that's something that really scares me. I see what a lot of these younger guys doing. They're doing a lot of crazy stuff, and fine, you live in socialized countries where your surgeries aren't going to cost you anything, okay, that's fine. But when you live in a place like America and you don't have a really good job with good medical insurance, or you can't afford to dish out 20 grand out of your own pocket for a surgery, you might want to start seriously rethinking what it is you are doing in the gym, because I do see a lot of guys doing way too much showboating that doesn't even actually build strength. You know, the best way to get to a 500-pound deadlift is not to build 450, 455, 460 on a max over and over and build up. Do enough repetitions with 400 pounds. Do enough quick movements with 400 pounds and triples and even 5-rep sets, even singles, whatever. As long as your total volume and workload, you get stronger and stronger and stronger and build up workload with 405 or 400 pounds, you will eventually get to a 500-pound deadlift. It doesn't require you to go to failure. It doesn't require you to do grinders. If you move a progressive amount of workload over time, even with a submaximal weight, and you do so in a way that ingrains technique and good form, you're going to get stronger on the exercise without going anywhere near your max. And there's a lot of ways to do that. Workload is what builds muscle. And you guys really understand what determines how strong you are on an exercise? It's only a couple of factors. How much hypertrophy you have in all the muscles that are involved, and the motor unit learning. How well do you know the technique and movement pattern of the lift? And by technique, I don't mean the technique necessarily to cheat. I mean the fact that you have trained your body to move a barbell through that plane of motion. There's a motor unit learning component to it. All right, that's what's going to determine how strong you are. And you build muscles up through mechanical tension, through metabolic fatigue, but the point is, as long as the muscles are getting bigger and you can maintain the movement pattern of the exercise, you're going to grow. And you know what? You can grow using much lighter weights than what your maxes are. And I'm not saying max effort work doesn't even have its place, but most people who are doing max effort work in the gym aren't going to 100%. They're not doing competition maxes, and people need to understand that difference. Any system of training that successfully has people do training maxes, they're actually doing like 90%. Meaning if your deadlift is 500 pounds, your training maxes in the gym for singles are probably 450, 455. Right? That is what you work with even for singles. And the thing is, it's been noted over the years, coaches have noted this, researchers have noted this, most of your top strength and conditioning coaches around the world will tell you the same thing. Training at 90% produces just as much strength as at 100%. And that doesn't just go for singles. All right? In other words, that last 10% effort doesn't actually produce better results. It doesn't produce better results. And people have this idea that they've got to push themselves all the time. And these are the guys who get hurt. These are the guys who burn out. And then when you try to tell them otherwise, they'll say, oh, you're just being lazy. You're promoting laziness. When it's like, no, I'm promoting the methods that the top champions around the world use to beat other top champions. And that includes even for size. And people don't understand that when it's been noted, going to muscle failure doesn't have any benefits over stopping short, 1 rep short of muscle failure for hypertrophy. All right, even if you're just trying to get big, strength and size go hand in hand, particularly for the drug-free lifter. If you get stronger, you get bigger. If you get bigger, you get stronger. There's a direct relationship between the two. Because as you get stronger, you can produce more workloads, meaning you can do more repetitions and even more set with the same lighter weight, right? If you're stronger, if you can produce more workload, you can produce more muscle growth. And conversely, the bigger and thicker a muscle is, the harder it can contract, the more strength you have. So there's an absolute relationship between the two. So when we talk about strength and building strength, people need to understand that size will go hand in hand with that. Muscles don't get stronger without getting bigger. And there are different factors involved there, and I've discussed that in other videos, but you can't separate those two. So the guys who are chasing size need to understand this applies to them as well. And what's been noted is that stopping a rep or two short of muscle failure doesn't produce any less gains than going to muscle failure does. But the whole point is that that last 10% effort on any exercise is how people get hurt oftentimes, because form starts to break down. They're subjecting themselves to higher risk. It's a higher chance of something going wrong. And the difference is grinding, and the difference is grinding versus actually completing a rep that looks good, that's done with decent speed, everything else. Grinding out reps doesn't make you any stronger. Like, for example, if you go to bench press 225 pounds and you grind it and you have to shift your body, do you honestly think that you worked the muscles any harder or the nervous system patterns any better than if you had just taken 10 pounds off and done 10, 15 and done it pretty and smooth? No. In fact, I would argue that doing the 215, the sub-maximal weight, cleaner, trained you to be more explosive and lift the weight faster. Because if you train slow, you're going to be slow. And that speed applies to a lot of different things. And slowness isn't a good thing in any athletic endeavor, whether it's recruiting muscle fibers to make them grow, or moving faster on a playing field, or throwing a punch or a kick faster. Depending on what it is that you're training for, moving slow is never a good thing. And when you hit true grinders, you are training your body to be slower. Just something to point out there. But the whole thing with all of this is that people get so caught up in showboating and how much weight can I lift at the gym, instead of just coming in and comfortably lifting weights that they're capable of handling with good technique and repeating that over and over and over and over. Meaning, again, if you're trying to get to a 500-pound deadlift and you are stuck at 475, working with 405 repeatedly is far less likely to injure you if you're not taking sets to failure. Meaning, if you can come in and do triples with 405 repeatedly for months on end and slowly increase the volume and workload, the total tonnage that you move per week with that, aren't you going to get bigger? Aren't you going to get stronger? And aren't they going to go hand in hand? Meaning you're very unlikely to hurt yourself. If you can lift 475 on any exercise and that's your max, doing 405 for 3 reps is very, very unlikely to hurt you as long as you use good form. But because you're using a weight that you can do repetitions with, like that, triples, and I'm using that as one example, you are ingraining the technique and the movement pattern over and over and over and over. Meaning if you end up throughout the week doing 5 or 7 or 8 sets of 3, you're doing a lot of first reps. First reps count a lot towards 1 rep maxes, of training you to do a 1 rep max. In fact, for people who want to get stronger on a max, I usually recommend high volumes of lower reps, even with a weight that they could do higher reps with, because more first reps equals better technique on the first lift. Alright, and the first lift is what you're going to do when you go to actually hit a deadlift. But it is that repetition over and over that ingrains the movement pattern for the exercise. It makes you get better at it by doing it over and over and over. And because you're accumulating volume with it, every single muscle involved in the exercise is going to get thicker. It's going to hypertrophy. And so muscle size plus motor pattern learning equals strength. Alright, that's the factors involved. And again, doing it this way and understanding that you're in the gym to build strength, not to show off, not to showboat. That is how you get bigger and stronger without hurting yourself. And you know, again, the same thing I've always pointed out, doing a lot of partials, it can hurt you in different ways, not just because it can put the wrong strain on joints and ligaments and things, but the bench press is a perfect example. Again, this is how a lot of guys tear pecs, they tear shoulders doing partial bench presses, stopping too far short of their chest. And they do it, why? So that they can lift a heavier weight. Now the excuse will be, well, because my chest hurts or my shoulder hurts if I go too low. It's like, well, if that's happening, it's because you don't know how to perform the exercise. And it may be happening because you've been short stroking so many reps that you've gotten weak at the bottom and you're weak at the hardest part of the exercise. So therefore you are going to tighten things up even more by short stroking it, and you're going to make it even easier to hurt yourself when that bar comes down one day and hits you in the chest and it stretches further than you're used to going. So you're creating a muscle weakness that is a mobility problem along with a joint angle specificity weakness, and it's all done ultimately to show off because they can't lift as heavy of a weight as they think they should be lifting. They stop short. But it's not making them stronger, and it's not even giving them the most growth potential. Because ultimately, usually moving any muscle through its full range of motion usually has the most potential for muscle fiber recruitment. It's not guaranteed that you're going to get bigger by going full range of motion on a lift, right? It's not guaranteed that you will, but it is giving you better muscle activation potential. It's giving you a higher probability of being able to reach a wider variety of muscle fibers through a muscle because you're performing the full function of the muscle. So it's better for your mobility, better for your overall flexibility, better for your overall strength because you're stronger through a wider variety of joint angles, but it can help you grow slightly faster. Again, it's all about putting your ego to the side, and you can get strong enough to lift good heavy weights, impressively heavy weights through normal full range of motion training in which you're not grinding, in which you're just doing clean, pretty reps over and over and over and over. You can get to the point to where your normal non-showboat strength actually can become fairly impressive. But guys have to learn to set their ego to the side and ask themselves, what is it that I'm in the gym to do? Am I in the gym right now to show off for all the other guys around me? Or am I in the gym to get bigger and stronger in the long term without hurting myself? That's the important question there. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.